Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about a whole line of perfumes from Cartier. This is their Les Heures Voyageuses collection, and this is their Oud collection in their high-end perfumery. And I've been sampling these and then acquiring these over the course of the past few months, and I've just been really, utterly impressed and really enjoying them all. And I have 3 full bottles, all of which I have acquired fairly recently. And I also have 4 others, which are samples or decants that I'm going to talk about briefly, in addition to just kind of talking about the line. And I've done a little bit of research on this line, and I saw an interview with Mathilde Laurent, who is the in-house perfumer for Cartier, and she talked about the brief and how it was kind of a trend-driven thing, and Cartier wanted to do an Oud line, and she was initially really reticent, but she said that she loved Oud, and she told Cartier that if she was going to do an Oud collection, that it would be really Oudy, really true to the musky, woody, smoky, animalic fragrances featuring Oud from the Middle East. And they kind of gave her carte blanche, according to her. And I will say that as far as designer Ouds go, these are just on another level completely. They're very true to what I perceive as the smell of Oud. They're very unique between each fragrance. You would think that a collection that has, I think, 10 or 11 Oud fragrances, they would all start to smell kind of samey, but they really don't. They're all really creative. And for each of them, I really think that I haven't smelled very much like them at all. So I'll talk about each one individually, but that's kind of my preface. The other thing that I'll say to preface this is that I'm not an expert on Oud by any means, and Oud really isn't even one of my favorite notes. But I am curious about Oud, though, because it inspires such zeal from people who love Oud. And obviously there are, cultures where Oud is sacred or revered and part of religious ceremonies. I'm also kind of fascinated by the sort of mania around Oud, especially in the West, because we hear so much about Oud as a material and its properties, and people can be really fanatical about it. And I think I'm kind of skeptical of that attitude. And there's also all kinds of misinformation about Oud out there on the internet. And for instance, one of the famous debates about Oud in perfumery is that Oud is so terribly expensive that almost no Western perfume features real Oud. And I don't have any information one way or another to back up that claim, but I feel skeptical of it because I have seen real information on the internet from, I was looking at a report on the harvesting of Agarwood from, I think it was either World Wildlife Foundation or the United Nations, something or another. And the global trade in Oud does measure in the tens of billions of dollars annually. So there's a lot of Oud and Agarwood being cultivated or harvested, whether legally or illegally. And it kind of makes me think that if there's, I don't know, I've seen figures that are $40 billion a year in Oud being produced and shipped around the world. It seems weird to me that a $40 billion market and mainstream Western perfumery doesn't buy any of it or can't afford to use any of it, and that all of it is being used in the Middle East or the other big consumer is actually China and Japan and Taiwan, I believe, for incense. So I don't know. I think that there's probably more Oud floating around than we might imagine. All that to say, I don't know if Cartier's Les Heures Voyageuses line uses real Oud or not. I wouldn't be surprised if it does, because the quality of the ingredients in these perfumes universally is excellent. They smell incredibly natural. They have a very nice kind of projection and sillage that you get from perfumes that are high in naturals that kind of feel thick on the skin. And when you smell them up close, they don't have like a chemically or nose tingling feel. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were, if not real oud, real natural materials that are mimicking the smell of oud in these perfumes. So that's a fairly long wind up to reviewing the perfumes, so let's get into it. Okay, the first one I'm going to talk about is probably the first one that I smelled, I think, and that's Oud Vanillé. And this is the most recent release in the collection. And I smelled this last summer at the airport in Paris, where they had a very, very big Cartier selection at the duty free. And I sprayed it on a tester strip and kind of took it with me on the plane and put it in my book that I was reading as a bookmark. And it was an overwhelmingly beautiful smell, I remember. And it kind of floated around in my area where I was sitting, and I was kind of worried that people were going to complain about it. But I was really, really enchanted by it, and I held onto that tester strip for a long time, kept going back to it. And I kept thinking about it. So eventually on eBay, I saw somebody was selling a pack of samples. It was like 12 2 ml samples, and I poured them into a bottle to make a decant, and man, I just fell in love with it. It is one of the most beautiful perfumes in my collection, I think. And all of them are, for Cartier doesn't list a note pyramid for any of these perfumes. I think that what they list here is oud and vanilla. And those two things are certainly the most prominent notes. In the beginning, the oud here is pretty band-aidy, and I actually have some of these on strips right here. So yeah, in the beginning, it opens up kind of challenging, actually. I'd say that this one is the one that has the most kind of latexy or rubbery or band-aidy smell to me. And I say that it's challenging, but it's also a pretty nice smell. It's kind of medicinal, and it smells a little bit after 30 minutes to an hour. It smells a little bit like a campfire to me. It gets smoky, woody, a little incensey maybe. And after that first 2 hours or so, maybe even 3 hours, it's a very long dry down. It starts to unfurl in a totally different direction. It becomes a bright kind of golden vanilla smell. It somewhat reminds me of the vanilla in Black Tie by Celine, where it's just really super glassy, silky, cool. It's not sweet, it's not gloopy, it's not ambery. It's kind of like vanilla divorced from some of the designer connotations we might have with vanilla. And it's accented by a lot of notes that I can't quite put my finger on. Sometimes I think I get something that's like ylang. There's definitely a green tinge there, maybe like Angelica. I could also say that this probably smells a little bit like, is it Angelique Noir from Guerlain, the one from the Art and Materier collection? It's very popular. It smells a little bit like that. It's got something aromatic and kind of herbal. I almost want to say like cilantro, or it's very fresh, but that vanilla is dominant along with these kind of green tinges, and it's just an enchanting smell. I can't get enough of it when I'm smelling it, especially, after that first 3 or 4 hour period where it's more of a focus on the oud. The long dry down of this is just to die for. It lasts forever and ever until you wash it off, really. And other people seem to really like it as well. I've shared it with a few people, and I gave away my decant once I bought this big bottle because I just couldn't be without it. I don't think I've seen anybody review Oud Vanillé yet on YouTube, but I am super, super pleased with it. The other thing that I'll mention about Oud Vanillé is that the box is different than the other ones. So I think that Les Heures Voyageuses has gone through a couple of different packaging iterations now. They originally came out in these like completely gold frosted bottles, and the original boxes I've heard are made of wood and are pretty oversized and over the top, come with sleeves, etc. This box is made of paper, and it's got kind of a, I doubt if you'll be able to see it, but it's got like a thatched pattern. It feels pretty nice. It's a very nice perfume box as far as perfume boxes go, but I think people are disappointed as compared to what they used to be. And this even is somewhat of a downgrade from the earlier boxes in this collection. This is a box for Oud Rose from a slightly earlier time period. And as you can see, this one has kind of like a bubble glossy thing on the front, whereas the new boxes have it just printed right on the paper. So I don't mind that they're trying to save a little bit of cash with the packaging. I mean, the packaging is the least important part to me, but just something interesting for those fanatics out there. Okay, so the next one I'm going to talk about is Oud Rose. This is the most recent one that I bought. And I bought this because I was having a little bit of an obsession about my decant of Oud Rose. I really loved it. And then I found out from a Cartier store that Oud Rose is discontinued, which doesn't really surprise me because Oud Pink, which was released afterward, is also an Oud Rose. And also Oud Rose is definitely the most challenging perfume in this collection. It is a big, very skanky oud, underpinning a kind of bold 80s rose sheep. In the opening, you get a really beautiful rose, just an enchanting, kind of like want to bury your nose in the petals, red rose scent. Then transitions into this heart, which is the rose, alongside a bunch of green notes. Green notes that I can't quite put my finger on again, and they don't give you any help with the notes. And it's alongside a big, leathery, spicy labdanum. Very beautiful and bold. But it all sits on this ever-present, pretty skanky oud in the base. And I have it here, but as I've worn it more, there's something in it that disturbs me a little bit. Something that I can't put my finger on. There's something there that is a little bit sour or urinous, or I don't know how to describe it. And I hate to make it sound like I regret this purchase, because I don't. I keep coming back to this perfume. I keep putting it on and trying to figure out what is that thing lurking in the background. It's almost kind of like ominous, and it's really exciting. I've seen great reviews on this perfume by Sebastian Furtado, and a very old one by Eugen from You Smells Good, where he says that this is actually one of his favorite Oud Roses, because it is kind of like unapologetically, I think he says it has teeth and claws, and it's so spot on. This is one that feels like it might ambush you. I also admire it because it smells nothing like any other of the big Oud Roses that you might be familiar with. It doesn't smell at all like Oud Satin Mood. It smells nothing like Oud Ispahan. Any of the offerings from like a Tom Ford or an Initio. It smells really classically French. It's very creative, and I just can't stop thinking about Oud Rose. Okay, and the last full bottle that I have from this line is Oud Menthe, and I picked this up fairly recently. I got an incredible deal on it from eBay. It came without a box, but otherwise it was perfect. And alongside Oud Vanillé, this may be my very favorite from the collection. This is so unexpected and out of the box. Again, because they don't give you a full note breakdown, this one I think they just give you Oud and mint. It's difficult to pinpoint what's going on here, but it is the most incredible, fresh, aromatic, creamy oud scent. And the best way I can describe it is it's almost to me like a masculine sport fragrance, but with oud, with the most high quality ingredients. So it opens with an incredible, beautiful, photorealistic mint, like you're chopping mint in your kitchen, and it's kind of different types of mint, like spearmint, peppermint, apple mint, if you've ever smelled apple mint. And that mint sticks around for a long time. And I've thought about this because this perfume lasts 12, 14, 16 hours. That in the deep dry down, 10 hours in, and I'm still smelling something minty. I think it can't actually be mint. It must just be things that are giving the impression of that cool freshness. But it's incredible. And the heart is very green. I guess that might be a theme with some of these, but I could say that there's probably a cardamom note that I get, maybe a little bit of patchouli, maybe some sandalwood, a little bit of amber. And those ingredients might sound like they're heavy, but really it's not. It is the most easygoing, office appropriate, mass appealing kind of fragrance, and I just love it. It is something that I think is actually backup bottle worthy, and I've been thinking about that a little bit because it appears that it might be getting discontinued. I don't know, but thrilled to have Oud Menthe. Okay, next one I'll talk about is Cartier's Oud and Oud. I don't know if that's focusing or not, but this is a decant that I've had. And this one is really lovely. I think that if I were to pick up another bottle, I would probably pick up Oud and Oud next. I think the name is a little bit cheeky because it's not really explained what they mean by Oud and Oud. But certainly in the opening, you get a very pungent, sour, almost kind of fermented smell. It actually reminds me of like peppercorns. It reminds me of yeast, like sourdough. Almost like if wood could be rotting. And all of that sounds really gross. And in the opening, this one isn't the most mass appealing at all. But I really like it. In that sourness, there's also a sort of greenness, like when you chop logs that are still wet, and you get the smell of this like cracked wood that is, it's very hard to describe unless you've ever split logs. But that is really kind of what I get here. And this one is also probably one of the lighter wearing ones from the collection, I'd say. But as it dries down, it becomes just a really comforting, kind of exotic, precious wood smell, and really magical. The other reason that I think about picking up Oud and Oud is one thing that I found through this collection is that Oud is a really wonderful material to layer with. And there have been multiple times where I've come home from a work day and whatever my work scent is still going strong. And I just want to kind of beef it up in its dry down, and I'll spray on one of these Ouds. And it really is such a versatile ingredient that works with so many different scent profiles. Probably because it's an essence of wood, and so many perfume bases are, woody. Anyway, Oud and Oud, slightly more challenging in the beginning, but a really great payoff in the dry down. All right, the next one that I'll talk about is, you won't be able to see this at all. This is Oud and Musc. And I tried this one fairly early on in my sampling journey. It's not my favorite. I think this is probably my least favorite from the collection. It starts off a little bit like Oud and Oud, in that it's a little bit pungent and sharp, but it is also a little bit more aldehydic and frothy. I'd say that Oud and Oud is kind of like the masculine leaning one, and Oud and Musc is the slightly more feminine leaning one. As it dries down, it becomes a little bit powdery, sort of like gauzy in texture, I'd say. And there's something there too, which is a little bit animalic in an unpleasant way to me. Something that smells a little bit unwashed. It definitely smells earthy, and It smells very natural, but it's just not a scent profile that I think I'd like to wear very often. I don't think it's challenging because of how animalic it is. I think it's challenging because it is warm, woody, spicy, dirty, and I think actually in my mind it's a little bit church lady in a weird way, or I guess maybe like, mosque lady. But I don't know. That being said, as it compares to other ouds that I've tried, it's really beautiful. Because I think most of the designer ouds that we get to sniff are absolutely terrible. Anyway, that's Oud and Musc. All right, this next one is I think the most popular from the line. This is Oud Santal, and this was the one that I was least looking forward to trying because I'm not a big sandalwood fan, and because this is the most popular one from the line, there are several YouTubers who have reviewed it, and they all rave about it, but they're all kind of like hype machine YouTubers, so I was very skeptical. And on first spray, I think I had reason to be skeptical because it is the boldest out of this line. It's the sweetest, the loudest. It's probably the least oudy in the opening. It starts off with a really bright plum note. And it's kind of difficult to describe plum as a note because it's not like a fleshy, fruity plum. It's almost like a syrupy, woody plum note. And right away it's joined by a very creamy, mass-appealing sandalwood. I will say that amongst the collection, this is the one that smells the least natural, but it kind of smells to me like an elevated Tom Ford fragrance. It's totally appropriate for going out to a club. It's I don't know, it's just kind of youthful, and I shouldn't say that with such disdain, but anyway, I've tested it a few times, and the more I wear it, the more I really, really like it, and I would totally consider getting a full bottle. It is a really, really pretty going out scent, and it's something that I think could replace um, something like Oud Satin Mood, which I find to be just like revoltingly sweet. This, especially in the dry down where it becomes more oudy, more woody, is super comforting, warm, cozy, cuddly, a little bit sexy. It's very different from the rest of the line, but in its own way, it's very creative, and I enjoy it a lot. Oud and Santal. Okay, and this last one here is Oud and Ambre, the amber scent. And I got a pack of 12 of these samples. A few of these can be had on eBay very reasonably. Packs of 12 gives you tons to sample. This is the most recent one that I've gotten. I'd say it ranks towards the bottom of my favorites, or at least the bottom of this collection in terms of what I like. It is a non-sweet amber predominantly with a little bit of oud. The oud is very easygoing here and doesn't emerge until much later in the dry down. At the top you get a very spicy, kind of crowd-pleasing amber, I'd say. A lot of people have compared this one to Grand Soir by Maison Francis Kurkdjian. I haven't smelled that one in a long time, so I don't know, but I remember that one being very boozy and very sweet. This, to me, doesn't come off as sweet really at all. It's more of a spicy, leathery fragrance. I think it's nice. I have fragrances in my collection that do that better than this, maybe. And I don't know, I think it's a beautiful scent, but it is not something that I really need in my collection. That being said, I could totally see a lot of people really flipping for this, especially if you live in an environment that is cooler than Los Angeles, because I just have a limited number of days where I feel like wearing deep, spicy, leathery amber fragrances. But as far as those go, this is a very nice offering. So that's my impression of 7 from Cartier's Les Heures Voyageuses collection. I'm really in love with this collection. Please let me know if you've tried any of them, and if so, which one's your favorite, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.